Well, in 2004, hurricanes were a hobby of mine. I didn't go to school to be a meteorologist. I just loved hurricanes. I went to school for marketing in USF and basically turned my hobby into a career. And I guess the one moral of this story is, anything you love to do, you can be great at. It doesn't matter what it is, okay? If you love softball, you can be a softball instructor or give lessons. If you love music, you can be a musician. I love weather and basically turned into one of the biggest websites for tracking hurricanes. Currently I have 500,000 followers on Facebook, so tell your mom and dad to follow Mike's weather page. Average salary of a meteorologist, just so you know, if you want to be a weatherman, weather girl, $88,000. That's a lot of money. That's over $1,000 a week. You can have some really nice stuff with that. So, pretty awesome. Well, you only got to go to school 4 years, Bachelor of Science. I think if I had to do it all over again, I'd love to be on TV, but I'm on the internet. Kind of the same thing. All right, so here we are 15 years later, 2018. I'm going to ask you guys one thing. If anybody wants to answer this, there's some pictures of me with Dennis Phillips and Red Cross. But what are spaghetti models? Does anybody know what spaghetti models are? All right, buddy, what you got?
I'm pretty sure they're like models that show like where the density and stuff of a hurricane is going to travel through or something like that.
Intensity, yeah. That's it. You also have something else with spaghetti models. That's the number one thing. What you got?
They predict where they're going to go.
Yeah, that's an art, right? So you got intensity and track, okay? That's the two coolest things. So obviously, I don't know if you guys saw that or not, that's not what a spaghetti model is. Emily thought that a spaghetti model was, pasta on a cat, but no, those aren't spaghetti models. These are spaghetti models. And this is Irma, okay? It's pretty fascinating. This is the official track here. This is what you see on the news, the NHC, National Hurricane Center, but these are spaghetti models, and this is what I named my website after. This is what I was in love with. It was all the possibilities of a storm. Every one of these little lines is a potential track of a hurricane. So when you see like on Baby's 9 or somebody, all these spaghetti models, that's like, wow, if you got one going over your house, there's a chance it can come over your house. But what does that mean? Every one of these spaghetti models is actually a different computer. It's a different brain. So it's fascinating to think all these computers are spitting out different things, just like you guys all have a brain. It'd be all, where you think it's going to go, where you think it's going to go, where you think it's going to go. Well, that's what a spaghetti model is. You've all heard of the hurricane hunters. Hurricane hunters fly into a storm, okay, and they collect data from the storms, and they get a center, and this is that little spot right here. This is where the hurricane hunters were. That's where the center of Irma was. So that's pretty cool. Hurricane hunters fly out there all the time. They collect data. That data is given to computers, and you get new spaghetti every 6 hours, and it spits out an idea of where it's going to go. All right, so. Couple cool things about spaghetti models. They do change, okay? So here's Irma. Last year, Irma was expected to go into Miami. All the spaghetti models were kind of going that direction, but there were a few that, I'm learning the clicker. There we go. Trying to get the cool laser pointer here. All right, so we did have some spaghetti models hitting the west coast of Florida. And then on September 6th, we had all kinds of spaghetti models. See, there was like, the computers had no idea where the storm was going. September 7th, they kind of huddled in on the east coast of Florida, but there were still a few outliers that showed the west coast. But then as we got closer and closer in time, you can see the models start to get tighter, closer together, and that's when the confidence increased that, hey, the west coast of Florida is going to get Irma. And that's, luckily for us in Tampa Bay, it stayed a little bit farther south, or we would have been dealing with a pretty serious hurricane. Two of the models you hear about in the news real quick, GFS and Euro, those are like the top two hurricane models. They both have different brains. Like last, GFS model predicted the west coast of Florida, the Euro predicted the east coast. So that's something the weathermen like to do, is talk about GFS versus the Euro. Those are just two big top models. Hurricane Sandy was another one that hit New York. GFS went out to sea, Euro went in. So not all the models are always correct. So just a little tidbit. All right, so here's some general stuff about hurricane. Here's all the seasons. It typically starts June 1st, but we have had a lot of systems in May. The last 5 years, we've had 4 out of 5 years there's been systems in May. So tropical systems can develop as early as May. As we get into August, September, October, that's the peak hurricane season. And you got a little graph here showing the peak hurricane seasons in September 10th. We're right here in November now, so the hurricane season is starting to die. So one question is, why do you think August, September, and October is the peak of hurricane season. Why do you think that? Let's have a girl there.
Because it's the hottest.
Hottest. That's one reason. Yep. But probably 99% of it is because of the heat. And that's because June, July, water's cold. As the heat starts to increase in August, September. Another thing is the winds across the Atlantic start to die down. I'm going to go into that, but true, it's the hottest time of the year, and that's obviously the hurricanes love heat. So good answer there. All right, hurricane names. Little tidbit: every 6 years, the hurricane names switch over. So this list automatically rotates back. So in 2023, Alberto will start over again in Barrow. But here's the next 5 years. You can see if your name's on the list. You can see if you're going to be a famous tropical storm or a hurricane.
We have an Alex.
We have an Alex. Yeah, let's see what else we got. Elsa. But yeah, that's 2018. We're already up to Oscar. Oscar was our last hurricane. Patty would be the next one on the list. So it's pretty cool. And this little graphic here is showing Florida. That's all the different areas that were ever hit by hurricanes. We're kind of in a little safe zone here in the Tampa Bay area, but obviously south part of Florida, the oranges gets a lot of hurricanes down that way. That's pretty wild. Just a little tidbit too. After the letter W gets used, they go into the Greek alphabet, which is different. And then just to show you different years, in 2005 there's 28 names, and 1983 are only 4 names.
Who picks those names? Who decides?
It's just a group that gets together and they just pick them. It's odd. Now names do get retired. When you have, back in the class there, Emily. Go ahead. Names do get retired. So when you have like a Michael this year or Florence, they'll retire those names. They'll never use them again. So anytime there's a real devastating hurricane, they'll drop the name off the list. So all your famous hurricanes are done. They'll never use them again. All right, here's a quick little video. We'll show you how hurricanes form.
You might have to go
Yeah,
and press the button. I don't know.
It's only like 2 minutes. So it's kind of fascinating here. This will tell you how hurricanes start.
Some of the most destructive hurricanes that make landfall in the U.S. start as a group of thunderstorms moving west off the west coast of
So
Africa.
Africa, believe it or not, they start in Africa. They come across the whole Atlantic.
This group of storms feeds off the warmth and moisture of the ocean. Air rises then to form more storms and is replaced constantly by the surrounding air. Below all this air rising, low pressure develops. Riding along the trade winds and rotating counterclockwise, thanks to the Coriolis effect, a result of the Earth's rotation, the storm will keep growing as long as it has these key ingredients. Water temperatures at or above 79 degrees. Ocean water versus land. Hurricanes don't like land. They need open water to survive. And high pressure above it. Weak flow, or what we call a lack of vertical wind shear, above a hurricane is vital to keep it intensifying. Now let's talk about the eye of the hurricane. Always impressive from space. It forms as air rotates up and out of this hurricane. Now some of the air that's being spit out of the top of the storm then sinks back into the center, keeping the eye itself relatively calm and clear. Immediately surrounding this tranquil eye is the most violent part of the hurricane, the eye wall. The most intense wind speeds at the surface are found right here in the eye wall, but they can extend, of course, out from the storm center. The most destruction in a hurricane comes from the eye wall out to the right quadrant. So you take the already impressive wind speeds inside the hurricane, add the forward motion and the storm surge, and you have a recipe for disaster.
All right, so there's a little video. Go here. A couple more cool things to show you guys. Okay, a couple things. Hurricanes need, real quick, just they need warm water, as it was mentioned by our girl over there. They need light winds above. You'll hear about that. They need moist atmosphere. They don't need land. Hurricanes need to develop over water. And they also need a lot of time. Hurricanes just don't pop up like a tornado does. Hurricanes take days and days and days to develop. Now your main threats, a lot of the media talks a lot about the wind speed of a hurricane, but the interesting fact is almost, I think 85 to 90% of all hurricane deaths are water related. Not wind related, water related. Surge, the water that comes up, or inland flooding. So the wind is not as bad as, you can hide from the wind, but you got to run from the water. Always remember that. And worst case scenario for us here in Oldsmar, East Lake area, is a surge up into the Tampa Bay area, and I'm going to show you that here in a second. So that's the big threat. The wind is not as bad as the water. Remember that. Water is pretty serious. Here's a question for you, then I got a good little video. All right, so since a hurricane travels counterclockwise, okay, let's pretend a hurricane goes to the north of Tampa Bay. Okay, so with that counterclockwise, which way do you think the water is going to push into Tampa Bay? Is it going to push it into Tampa Bay or push it out? Because you got a flow towards it. Nadia, is that what you said? Somebody said towards it? No? You're right, towards it. Okay. Now Irma was below Tampa Bay. Okay, now think about this. We're right here, and you've got a hurricane spinning this way. Okay, think about it. Which way is the water going to go? It's going to push out. Pretty fascinating. So here you go. Here's a good example. Here's Emily. So we had two hurricanes, and this is Upper Tampa Bay. This is R.E. Olds Park. All right. So last year, Irma. Here's Irma. It passed to our south. Okay. All the water and winds pushed the water out of Tampa Bay. I'm not sure if you remember the news, but all this water in Upper Tampa Bay was gone. It actually blew the water out into the Gulf of Mexico. That's because as Irma was spinning, it blew all the water out of Tampa Bay. It's real fascinating. Now, a year before, we had a hurricane go to our north. Is that the end of class?
No.
We had a hurricane go to the north of Tampa Bay, and guess what? All that water was pushed in to Tampa Bay. And that would be the worst case scenario for us here. If we have a hurricane go just a little bit to the north, and here's all that water. That's the same dock. But all this water got pushed into Tampa Bay just because of storm surge. So it's fascinating, the power of water, all that wind pushing, into the Tampa Bay. So there, that's about an 8-foot difference right there in the water in the same spot. Okay, here's another cool thing on storm surge. This is, again, the biggest part of hurricanes you got to worry about. But this is, I don't know if all you went to Forest Lakes Elementary School, but this is a sign out on Forest Lakes.
How old was Emily there?
A couple years ago. Yeah, she was going there, 5 years.
Probably fifth grade or fourth grade.
But there's a sign all around town. You'll see these signs. It says, worst case scenario, this is about 1.5 miles from the bay. Water can actually be right here.
Wow.
And that's in past the school, Forest Lakes.
Oh my gosh.
And here,
That
look at-
signs in Forest Lakes?
Yeah, Forest Lakes Elementary. Now look at this. This is the potential now. If a hurricane were to come and land, let's say right here, all this water gets pushed into the Tampa Bay area. Look what happens. That's water. Pinellas County becomes an island. Okay? And this is not made up. This is Category 4 hurricane. No, not 5. It could be a 5. But Oldsmar, where we live, all this area. So this, this is serious. Like water could really.
Is it all flood zone insurance wise?
Well, I don't think it's mandatory, but Lake Tarpon would be underwater and basically would be cut off. So it's incredible to think Pinellas County could be an island if we ever got. And it will happen. It happened one time in the 1920s, I believe. So it happened, and hopefully not happen again. So, all right, this is a cool video. You'll love this one. This was a guy that was in the eye of the Hurricane Michael that just happened last couple weeks ago. This is what it looks like to be in the eye of a hurricane. He was up in Panama City Beach. He's a storm chaser. That's what he was. He wanted to see it, but it was like 200-mile-an-hour winds. That's what it sounds like. People that stayed in the hurricane said it was the scariest. They'll never do it again. We only had a Category 1 here in Irma. This is there's a sign put down. I mean, there's people that are living in tents right now. Thousands of homes are gone. It's terrible right now in Panama City.
My brother was in Fort Myers, I think it was 2004. No, we had that
Charlie.
real bad, yeah. We had that real bad storm cycle, like 4 hurricanes came through. It was crazy.
That's when I started. It was fascinating.
That's the year he bought a generator.
I want to go up there.
All right, so he'll get out in the eye here. This is really quiet. It's only like 2 minutes long, but all right, so he gets out now. This is the eye of the hurricane.
I'm in the eye, I'm in the eye. Watch
So
my
there's daylight.
I'm here. Callaway, I'm in the eye.
So you get the storm passes over you, and you're like in the middle of a tornado, and it's still going to come back and get them from the other side. But that was just a couple weeks ago, and Hurricane Michael. Then this is the closest. Now the winds start blowing the other way because as the storm rotates, as the eye passes, that wind comes from the opposite side. All the wind went this way, now it's going this way.
To my east, hold northeast, all winds went from northeast to 150 to 170. Catastrophic damage everywhere. And now come around to west at about 100 to 120 now. It's an absolute roar outside.
You start to see it blow the other way. So it's incredible to think the power of Mother Nature, how 10 minutes ago, the wind was blowing one direction, and then it comes back the other way. All right, so here we go. Couple things. Almost done. This is scientific stuff. It's kind of cool. You might like it. But 3 things affect hurricanes, all right? You'll hear a lot about upper wind shear. Now, that's the amount of wind in the upper atmosphere. And these systems, they like to grow upwards. Okay, these are, you know, y'all play with these as kids. Maybe some of you still do. I do. They're kind of fun. But storms grow upwards, and if you have a lot of high wind shear, it blows off the top of thunderstorms. And the hurricanes need low wind shear. And when Irma formed, there was this blues and greens are real light wind shear, and this is what it looks like right now. So we have a lot of wind in the upper atmosphere, and storms can develop with a lot of wind shear. So that's one factor. The other thing is ocean heat, okay? Pretty fascinating because there's an ocean heat and sea surface temperature. Sea surface is what you see on the news every day, but there's also it's how deep the hot water goes. And a hurricane needs really deep hot water because what happens is it starts pulling up all this warm water, and if it starts pulling up cold water, it dies. So the hotter the water is deep, the more strong of a hurricane. And then lastly, the thing that's really cool, a lot of you might not know, is dust from Africa blows off of the deserts, and it comes across the Atlantic Ocean. And when you get a lot of dust, it actually chokes a hurricane. So you hear about African dust. And we get the dust all the way to Florida. When you have real pretty sunsets at night, that's because the dust actually magnifies the sun. So it's pretty cool to think that dust from Africa can control hurricanes. All right, so here's a good question for you. Does anybody know the difference between a watch and a warning? Okay, what you got?
A watch is when there's a chance of it, and a warning is when it's really likely.
100%. For some reason, even my wife didn't know the difference. It's real confusing.
I forget.
I actually thought it was the opposite.
Well, see,
I
there
know.
you go. I'm telling you, they shouldn't have WW. Basically, a watch, like you just said, man, could happen, and a warning is going to happen. And this little graphic the Weather Channel has, I don't know if y'all watch Wizard of Oz, but I guess that means maybe, and it is. So, just remember that. Watch means, hey, be careful. Warning is, it's happening. And guess what? Hey, that's it. That's it. There's my little piggy. That's it, folks. There's our plywood steak, you know. Appreciate it. How much time we got?
We got 20 minutes, 28
Okay.
minutes.
Well, let me share one more little video. It's like 2 minutes long. Do you need, all right, hurricane plan. All right, this is important. All right. People up in Panama don't understand it. They're telling people that don't have a hurricane plan wish they had a hurricane plan. So this is something y'all want to do. Get your parents involved. Have a hurricane kit for next season. And they did a little show at our house. You'll see. That's Dennis Phillips, suspender guy. You know, he's one of friends of ours. But the Red Cross came to our house and talked about a hurricane kit. So.
That guy's very famous. I mean, well-known figure there.
Oh, heck yeah.
He really is. Mike Boylan created his own weather website.
There's my website, it's me.
After the 2004 hurricane season.
I was scrolling online to try to find a
Is
link.
that you?
That's me.
Knowing his passion for weather, we want
That's
to
our house.
see how prepared he and his family were for
Where's
the
Emily?
upcoming hurricane season. Hello, Mike.
But the Red Cross is going to show you guys what a hurricane kit is. That's one point of this video. You got to have a hurricane kit. There's some stuff in there that's important.
Bro, this movie.
You're famous.
You're famous. Except for nobody knows what
So are you. You're because we're famous. We love that.
I suppose.
Janet brought her own
So here's Red Cross, and they're going to talk about things to put in on a hurricane
to
kit.
show the brothers what every family should have, which includes a flashlight and batteries. Sanitary items like toothpaste and
First aid kit.
First aid
Always
kit.
essential. You have enough bottled water.
Need water. People are out of water up in Panama right
1
now.
gallon per day for each one of you.
a manual can opener and food that you
Manual can opener. Think about it. You don't have power.
And there are other considerations.
If you have medication. you
Pictures
should
of your
make sure
pets.
something-
Because your pets might get out. That's a big thing. People lose pets in storms, and you got to have a picture of your pet to.
Birth certificates, any types of your marriage license.
So all you gotta do is Google hurricane kit. Make sure you have a hurricane kit. Bottom line, they save a lot of people's lives, or at least get your parents to do it.
ATMs are gonna work.
Buy them one for Christmas.
And either way
You
they're
can buy them online. I'm pretty sure
So you wanna
cheap.
make sure you have extra cash in your possession if you get that.
Also consider your
Here's a picture
family.
of the pet. There's our dog.
Take a picture of yourself and your family with your pet and keep that picture with you, because that's sort of proof that pet is yours.
A pair of gloves should also be in your kit.
Picking up anything out in the yard or even you need these.
Then there's the item the Boylans didn't consider.
That's big toilet paper. Yeah, bring toilet paper. That's,
Since the
didn't know you had to have toilet paper in a hurricane kit.
had
You
a
do.
surprise for them from
Gotta use toilet
the
paper.
actual and
Alright, so there you go.